Kepler Station was the biggest trading post in 3-star systems. Ships came and went every hour, bringing goods from hundreds of different worlds. The station was huge, with metal walls that stretched up so high you could not see the ceiling. Lights blinked everywhere, and the air smelled like fuel and strange foods from alien worlds. But today, something was different. The usual noise of the busy station had turned into whispers. People walked slower and looked around with fear in their eyes. Even the tough cargo workers who usually laughed and joked were quiet now. The reason for this fear had a name: Zarthuk, the Beastmaster. Zarthuk was not like most aliens. He was tall, maybe 3 times taller than a human. His body was made of something that looked like living crystal, purple and blue colors, flowing through him like water. When he moved, the crystal parts of his body made soft ringing sounds, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But it was not his size or his strange crystal body that made people afraid. It was what he could do with his mind. Zarthuk had a special power. He could reach into the minds of other living things and control them completely. It did not matter how big they were or how smart they were. Once Zarthuk put his mental grip on them, they became his slaves, and he had many slaves. 50 different species followed Zarthuk wherever he went. Some were as small as house cats but could bite through metal. Others were as big as trucks and could crush a person with one step. There were flying creatures with wings like sharp blades, and crawling things with too many eyes and teeth. Each one was deadly in its own way. Each one would kill without thinking if Zarthuk told it to. The Krix warriors were among his favorites. They looked like giant insects but walked on 2 legs like people. Their skin was hard like armor, and their claws could cut through steel doors. Before Zarthuk caught them, the Krix had destroyed 3 human colonies. Now they followed him like pets. The Vorthik were different. They were smart, maybe smarter than most people. They had big heads with too many eyes and could solve math problems that hurt your brain to think about. They used to run banks and trading companies across the galaxy. Now they used their smart brains only to serve Zarthuk. There were also the Shadow Beasts. Nobody knew what planet they came from. They looked like living darkness with red eyes. They could walk through walls and appear anywhere without making a sound. Even the toughest space marines were scared of Shadow Beasts, and there were 47 other species. Each one special, each one dangerous, each one under Zarthuk's complete control. Today, Zarthuk was taking his collection for a walk through the main area of Kepler Station. This was not just a walk. This was a show of power. He wanted everyone to remember who was really in charge. People pressed themselves against the walls as the group moved through the wide corridor. Store owners quickly closed their doors. Parents grabbed their children and hid behind whatever they could find. Zarthuk walked in the center of his creatures like a king with his army. His crystal body caught the station lights and threw colorful patterns on the walls. The sound of his footsteps mixed with the clicks, growls, and hisses of his beasts. A Thorian merchant, one of the rich traders who usually acted very important, saw Zarthuk coming. The Thorian quickly got down on his knees and put his face to the floor. His expensive clothes got dirty on the metal ground, but he did not care. Being alive was more important than looking good. A group of space pirates, the kind of people who were not afraid of anything, saw the parade and ran away as fast as they could. Their leader, a big man with scars all over his face, looked back once and then ran even faster. The station security guards knew better than to try to stop Zarthuk. They had weapons, but what good were weapons against someone who could make you shoot yourself? They stayed far away and pretended not to see anything. Zarthuk enjoyed the fear. It fed his ego like food feeds the body. Every scared face, every person hiding, every whisper of terror made him feel more powerful. This is how things should be, he thought. This is the natural order. His creatures moved in perfect formation around him. The big ones on the outside to protect him, the fast ones ready to chase anyone who ran, the smart ones watching for tricks or traps. Everything was exactly as it should be. The Beastmaster had built his power over many years. He started small, controlling just 1 or 2 creatures at a time, but his abilities grew stronger with practice. Soon he could control 10, then 20, then 50 different beings all at once. Governments tried to stop him. They sent armies and space fleets. But how do you fight an enemy who can turn your own soldiers against you? How do you win when your weapons become his weapons? Some tried to make deals with him. They offered him money, planets, even whole star systems. Zarthak took what he wanted and kept growing stronger. Others tried to hide from him. They built secret bases on planets nobody knew about. But Zarthak's creatures could track anyone, anywhere. The Shadow Beasts were especially good at finding people who did not want to be found. Now, 3 sectors of space knew his name. When people heard that Zarthak was coming, smart ones packed their things and left. The ones who stayed learned to keep their heads down and their mouths shut as he walked through Kepler Station today. Zarthak felt satisfied. His reputation was solid. His power was unquestioned. His collection of controlled beasts was the strongest force in this part of the galaxy. Nothing could challenge him. Nothing could surprise him. He had seen every trick, faced every threat, and won every time. The Beastmaster was at the top of the food chain, and he planned to stay there forever. Sarah Chun rubbed her tired eyes as she walked through the metal corridors of Kepler Station. She had been flying for 3 days straight, bringing medicine to a small colony that was fighting a disease outbreak. The colony was far from any major trade routes, and the trip took much longer than normal. Her cargo ship, the Lucky Strike, was not fancy. It was old and made noise when it flew, but it got her from place to place. Sarah made her living carrying things that other pilots did not want to carry. Medical supplies to dangerous places, food to poor colonies, repair parts to mining stations that nobody else would visit. The job did not pay much money, but Sarah liked helping people. She had been a cargo pilot for 8 years now. In that time, she had seen many strange things and met many different kinds of aliens. Most of them were nice enough, just trying to make a living like everyone else. Right now, all Sarah wanted was to deliver her cargo and find something to eat. The food on her ship was running low, and she was tired of eating the same energy bars every day. The station had a place that sold real food from Earth, hamburgers and pizza, and other things that reminded her of home. She checked her datapad as she walked. The medical bay was somewhere on level 5, section C. The station was big and easy to get lost in. Sarah had been here before, but not for a while. She kept looking at her pad to make sure she was going the right way. The corridors were more quiet than usual. Sarah noticed this but did not think much about it. Sometimes the station was busy, sometimes it was quiet. She had other things to worry about. She turned a corner and almost walked into a crowd of people. They were all pressed against the walls, looking scared and whispering to each other. Some of them had their children with them, holding them tight and covering their eyes. "What's going on?" Sarah asked a Zeridian trader who was hiding behind a support beam. The trader looked at her with surprise. His scales were turning pale, which meant he was very frightened. "You don't know?" he whispered. "It's the Beastmaster. He's here with his collection. You should hide, human. It's not safe." Sarah looked ahead and saw what the trader meant. In the middle of the wide corridor, there was a group of the strangest animals she had ever seen. They were arranged in neat rows, like soldiers at attention. Some were huge and covered in armor-like skin. Others were small but looked very dangerous. A few were floating in the air, their wings beating slowly. At the center of the group stood the most unusual being Sarah had ever seen. He was very tall and seemed to be made of colored crystal. Purple and blue light moved through his body like flowing water. This had to be the Beastmaster. The trader was talking about. Sarah had heard stories about Zarthak, but she had never seen him before. The story said he could control minds and had an army of alien creatures. Looking at the group in front of her, she could see the stories were true, but Sarah was tired and hungry. She had medicine to deliver, and people were waiting for it. The station was big, but this was the fastest way to get to the medical bay. She did not have time to find another route. She put her datapad in her pocket and started walking toward the group. The people behind her gasped. Someone whispered, "What is she doing? She's going to get killed." Sarah did not hear them. She was thinking about the delivery, about getting paid, about finding some real food. Her mind was on normal, everyday things. As she got closer to the strange group, she could see how dangerous these creatures really were. The big ones had claws that could tear through metal. The flying ones had teeth like swords. The small ones looked like they could move very fast and bite before you knew what was happening. But Sarah had seen dangerous animals before. She had delivered supplies to research stations where scientists studied wild creatures from dozens of worlds. She had learned that most animals, even scary ones, would leave you alone if you left them alone. She reached the edge of the group and said, "Excuse me," in a normal voice. The crystal being Zarthak turned to look at her. His eyes were like purple fire, and when he stared at Sarah, she felt a strange pressure in her head. It was like someone was trying to push their way into her thoughts, but Sarah was tired and focused on her job. The pressure was annoying, like a headache starting, but she ignored it. She had had worse headaches from staying awake too long. She walked between two of the large creatures, still looking at her datapad. The creatures moved slightly to let her pass, their eyes tracking her movement. Sarah nodded politely to them, the way she would nod to people who moved out of her way. "Thanks," she said, and kept walking. Zarthak's mental probe hit her mind harder, trying to take control. But Sarah's thoughts were simple and clear. Deliver medicine, find food, go home. There was nothing for his mental powers to grab onto, no fear or greed or anger he could use. She walked through the middle of the group, past creatures that had destroyed armies and conquered planets. She checked her datapad again and muttered, "Level 5, Section C should be just ahead." The entire corridor was completely silent. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen to the crazy human who had just walked through the Beastmaster's collection. Sarah reached the other side of the group and kept walking. She was already thinking about what kind of food she wanted to buy when she finished her delivery. Behind her, something impossible happened. Every single creature, all 50 of them, sat down at exactly the same moment. The sound echoed through the corridor. 50 different aliens from 50 different worlds, each one deadly in its own way, had just sat down like trained dogs waiting for their dinner. Zarthak stared at his collection in shock. He tried to reach out with his mind, trying to make them stand up again. But they would not move. They just sat there, looking in the direction the human woman had gone. Sarah heard the noise and looked back. She saw the group of creatures sitting on the floor and the tall crystal being standing in the middle of them, looking confused. "Huh," she said. "That's weird." Then she shrugged and kept walking toward the medical bay. She had work to do. Zarthak stood frozen in the middle of his sitting creatures. His crystal body flickered with confused colors. Reds and oranges, that meant anger, mixed with gray streaks that showed fear. For the first time in many years, the Beastmaster did not know what to do. He reached out with his mind to the nearest creature, a Krix warrior that had been under his control for 5 years. The mental connection was still there. He could feel its thoughts, simple and direct as always. But when he commanded it to stand up, nothing happened. The Krix just sat there, staring down the corridor where the human woman had disappeared. Zarthak tried again, pushing harder with his mental powers. The effort made his crystal body glow brighter, and the ringing sound he made when he moved became louder and more desperate. Still nothing. He reached out to all 50 creatures at once, something that usually required great effort but had never failed before. His mind touched each one: the flying shadow beasts, the smart Vorthik, the armored Dorian crushers, all of them. The connections were perfect. He could sense their thoughts and emotions. But none of them would follow his commands. They just sat there like statues. The crowd of people who had been hiding against the walls began to whisper. At first, the whispers were quiet and scared, but they grew louder as people realized something very strange was happening. What's wrong with them? Why aren't they moving? Is this some kind of trick? A small Viridian child, no bigger than a human 6-year-old, wiggled out of his mother's arms and took a step toward the sitting creatures. His mother grabbed him quickly, but not before several people saw what he did. "The child isn't afraid," someone said. "Maybe they're broken? Maybe the Beastmaster is losing his power?" Zarthak heard the whispers and felt something he had not felt in a long time: panic. His reputation was everything. If word spread that his creatures had stopped obeying him, every enemy he had made over the years would come looking for revenge. He concentrated all of his mental energy on one creature, a small but deadly razorbird that could fly faster than most ships. It was one of his oldest slaves, captured when he first started building his collection. The bird's mind was simple and easy to control. Zarthak pushed his commands into its thoughts with enough force to break through any resistance. "Stand up," he commanded with his mind. "Fly. Attack someone. Do something." The razorbird turned its head to look at him. For a moment, Zarthak thought it was going to obey. Then it looked back down the corridor and settled more comfortably into its sitting position. That was when Zarthak started to understand how serious this was. The crowd was getting braver. Some people were taking pictures with their communication devices. Others were starting to move closer, realizing that the deadly creatures were not acting deadly anymore. Then, the security guards arrived. Station security on Kepler was used to dealing with strange situations. The station was a meeting place for hundreds of different species, and unusual things happened every day. But they had never seen anything like this. Captain Morris, the head of security, was a tough human who had dealt with pirates, smugglers, and even a few small wars. He carried a plasma rifle and wore armor that could stop most weapons. But even he stopped and stared when he saw 50 of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures sitting quietly in the middle of the corridor. "What's the situation here?" He called out to the crowd. A dozen voices answered at once. "The Beastmaster's creatures just sat down. They won't move." A human woman walked past, and they all sat down at the same time. It was the strangest thing. Captain Morris looked at Zarthat, who was now glowing with angry red colors. The Beastmaster's mental powers were legendary. Morris had been ordered never to interfere with Zarthak unless lives were in immediate danger. But this situation was beyond anything in his training manual. "Sir," Morris said carefully, "is there a problem with your pets?" Zarthak spun around to face the security captain. His crystal body rang like an angry bell, and Morris felt a pressure in his head as the Beastmaster's powers tried to take control of his mind. But Morris had special training and mental shields built into his armor. He could resist for a while. "Sir, I'm going to need you to move your creatures out of the main corridor. You're blocking traffic." "My creatures are not obeying," Zarthak said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "This is impossible. Something has happened to them." "What kind of something?" Morris asked. "I don't know." Zarthak's voice was rising. "They were fine until that human female walked past. Then they all sat down at once, and now they won't respond to my commands." Morris talked into his communication device. Base, this is Morris. I need Dr. Yaxley down here right away. We have a situation with some kind of animal behavior problem. Dr. Yaxley was the station's expert on alien biology. She arrived 10 minutes later, carrying a bag full of scanning equipment. She was a small, thin woman with gray hair and eyes that saw everything. She took one look at the sitting creatures and pulled out her biological scanner. The device hummed as it checked their life signs, brain activity, and hormone levels. Fascinating, she said after a few minutes. Their brain patterns are normal. No signs of disease or outside interference. But their stress hormones are very low, almost like they're relaxed. Relaxed? Zarthek's voice cracked like breaking glass. They are my slaves. They don't relax. They obey. Dr. Yaxley scanned a few more creatures, then stepped back and looked thoughtful. Captain Morris, did anyone see what happened when this started? Several people in the crowd started talking at once, but Morris held up his hand for quiet. One at a time. You, he pointed to the Zeridian trader who had tried to warn Sarah. A human woman walked through the group, the trader said. She just walked right past them like they weren't there. The moment she was gone, they all sat down together. Did she do anything to them? Use any kind of device or weapon? Nothing, the trader said. She was looking at a datapad and seemed to be in a hurry. She said, "Excuse me," and "Thanks," like she was just walking through a crowd of regular people. Dr. Yaxley made notes on her scanner. Where is this human woman now? Captain Morris was already checking his security cameras. Computer, track the human female who passed through this area 5 minutes ago. The station computer's voice was calm and efficient. Subject identified as Sarah Chun, cargo pilot. License number HC7749. Currently located in Medical Bay 7, Level 5, Section C. Bring her here, Zarthak commanded. I want to know what she did to my creatures. Now hold on, Morris said. We don't arrest people without evidence of a crime. Dr. Yaxley, is there any indication that this human did something harmful? Dr. Yaxley looked at her scanner readings again. No signs of toxins, diseases, or technological interference. The creatures appear to be in perfect health. They're just sitting. But Morris was already calling for backup. Something very strange was happening on his station, and until he understood what it was, he was going to be very careful. 20 minutes later, 2 security guards found Sarah Chen in the medical bay, finishing her delivery. She was talking to Dr. Henriksen, the human doctor in charge of the facility. Miss Chun? One of the guards said, "We need you to come with us." Sarah looked surprised. What for? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just delivering medicine. There's been an incident involving you and some animals. We just need to ask you a few questions. Sarah looked confused but agreed to come along. As they walked back toward the main corridor, she asked, "What kind of incident?" "I don't know anything about any animals." Dr. Veshai arrived on Kepler Station 6 hours after the incident. She was the galaxy's leading expert on animal behavior and had studied creatures from over 200 different worlds. When the station called for help understanding what had happened to Zarthek's collection, she was the first person they contacted. Dr. Vexhai was a Caltharian, which meant she looked something like a tall, thin lizard that walked on 2 legs. Her skin was green with blue spots, and her large eyes could see details that most other species would miss. She had been studying animal behavior for 40 years and had never seen anything like what the security video showed her. "Play it again," she said to Captain Morris. They were sitting in the station security office, watching the recording of Sarah Chun walking through Zarthak's creatures. Dr. Vexhai had already watched it 12 times, but she wanted to see it once more. On the screen, Sarah appeared around the corner, looking at her datapad. She walked straight toward the group of dangerous aliens without any sign of fear or concern. When she reached them, she said, "Excuse me," and walked right through the middle. The moment she was past them, every creature sat down at exactly the same time. "Remarkable," Dr. Vexhai said. "And you say the human female had no weapons, no technology that could have caused this?" "We searched her and her ship," Morris said. "Nothing unusual. Just a regular cargo pilot making a delivery." Dr. Vexhai made notes on her data tablet. "Where is she now?" "Still in detention. She keeps asking when she can leave. Says she has another delivery to make tomorrow." "And the creatures? Are they still sitting?" 4 hours now. Zarthak is getting more angry every minute. He's tried everything he can think of to make them move, but they just sit there. Dr. Vexhai stood up and walked to the window that looked out over the main corridor. Far below, she could see the group of creatures still sitting in perfect formation. Zarthak was pacing back and forth among them, his crystal body flashing with frustrated colors. "I need to examine the creatures more closely," she said, "and I need to talk to this human." 20 minutes later, Dr. Vexhai was down in the corridor with her scanning equipment. She moved carefully among the sitting creatures, checking their vital signs and brain patterns. Each scan told her the same thing. The creatures were healthy, calm, and completely aware of what was happening around them. They were choosing not to move. A small razorbird, one of the deadliest hunters in known space, let her walk right up to it without showing any aggression. When she reached out to take a blood sample, it actually moved its wing to make her job easier. "This is impossible," Zarthak said, watching her work. "That creature has killed hundreds of people. It should attack you just for getting close." "When did you first capture this bird?" Dr. Vexhai asked. 7 years ago. It was the terror of the Sigma sector. I had to use my full mental powers to break its will." Dr. Vexhai nodded and moved on to the next creature, a huge Thorian crusher that could smash through spaceship hulls. It was sitting as calmly as a pet waiting for dinner. And this one, 5 years ago. It destroyed an entire mining colony before I controlled it. Dr. Vexhai finished her scans and stepped back to think. Each creature she examined showed the same pattern. Normal health, low stress, and what looked almost like contentment. "I need to see the human now," she said. Sarah Chun was sitting in a small, clean room that the station used for interviewing people. She looked tired and confused. When Dr. Vexhai entered the room, Sarah looked up hopefully. "Are you here to let me go? I really don't understand what this is all about." "I'm Dr. Vexhai. I study animal behavior. I'm trying to understand what happened when you walked past those creatures earlier today." Sarah shrugged. "I walked past some animals, that's all. I was trying to get to the medical bay." "Did you notice anything unusual about them?" "They were big and kind of scary looking, but lots of aliens look scary when you first see them. I've been flying cargo for 8 years. You learn not to judge by appearances." Dr. Vexhai sat down across from Sarah and pulled out her data tablet. "Tell me about your home world. Where are you from originally?" "Earth. Born and raised in Montana." "Montana? It's a place with lots of open land and mountains. My family has a ranch there. We raise cattle and horses." Dr. Vex's eyes widened. "You grew up around large animals?" "Sure. Horses, cattle, dogs, cats. My grandfather always said our family was good with animals. We've been ranchers for 5 generations." "What kind of dogs?" Sarah looked confused by the question. "All kinds. Working dogs mostly. Border collies for herding the cattle. German shepherds for protection. Bloodhounds for tracking." "Why does this matter?" Dr. Vexhai was typing rapidly on her tablet. "How many animals did your family keep?" "I don't know exactly. Maybe 200 cattle, 30 horses, a dozen dogs, barn cats. Lots of animals. It was a working ranch." And you worked with these animals personally? Every day since I was old enough to walk. Feeding, training, herding, medical care when they got sick. My dad always said I had a natural touch with them. Dr. Vexhai leaned back in her chair, her mind racing. She was starting to understand what had happened, and the implications were staggering. Tell me about Earth's history with animals, she said. How long have humans been working with them? Sarah looked even more confused. I don't know. Thousands of years? We've always had domestic animals, as far as I know. Dogs and cats and horses and cattle and sheep and pigs. And before that, in the wild? Well, humans used to hunt for food. That was before farming was invented. Why are you asking me all this? Dr. Vexhai stood up and began pacing around the small room. Ms. Chun, I need to access Earth's historical databases. This is very important. She used her tablet to connect to the Galactic Information Network and began searching for data about Earth and human evolution. What she found made her sit down hard in her chair. Incredible, she whispered. For the next 2 hours, Doctor. Vexhai read everything she could find about human history. She learned about humans as persistence hunters, chasing prey across vast distances until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. She read about the domestication of wolves into dogs, the first partnership between humans and other species. She discovered that humans had been working with animals for over 50,000 years. They had domesticated dozens of species, turning wild creatures into partners and companions. They had bred animals for specific traits, trained them for complex tasks, and lived alongside them as family members. Most importantly, she learned about pack behavior. Dogs, wolves, and most other social predators lived in groups with clear leadership structures. The alpha of the pack led through a combination of strength, intelligence, and natural authority. Pack members followed the alpha not because they were forced to, but because every instinct they had told them to. And humans, Dr. Vexhai realized, had been the ultimate alphas for thousands of generations. She ran back to the corridor, where Zarthixers were still sitting. Her scanning equipment showed exactly what she expected to find. The creatures were displaying classic pack submission behavior. They were not being controlled or forced to sit. They were choosing to show respect to what their deepest instincts recognized as a superior alpha predator. Zarthek, she called out to the Beastmaster. Your mental control works by force, correct? You push your will into their minds and make them obey? Of course, Zarthek said impatiently. That is how mind control works. But these creatures evolved on worlds with pack hunters and social predators. Deep in their genetic memory, they know how to recognize a natural alpha. When they encountered the human, every instinct they had told them they were in the presence of the ultimate pack leader. Zarthek's crystal body flickered with confusion. That's impossible. Humans are weak. They have no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. They don't need them, Dr. Vexhai said. They have something better. 50,000 years of evolutionary programming that makes them the perfect alpha species. Your mind control is artificial. The human's authority is natural. She turned to face the sitting creatures. They're not broken, and they're not rebelling. They're showing respect to someone they instinctively recognize as their true leader. The implications hit everyone in the corridor at the same time. If one ordinary human could override the Beastmaster's control just by walking past, what did that mean for the rest of the galaxy? The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within 6 hours, every major news network was broadcasting the story of how a simple human cargo pilot had walked past the legendary Beastmaster's collection and made every creature sit down just by being there. The security camera footage was played on screens from the core worlds to the outer rim. Within 12 hours, scientists on 100 different worlds were digging through their databases, looking for information about human evolution and animal behavior. within 24 hours. The Galactic Council was holding an emergency session. Sarah-chan sat in a comfortable hotel room on Kepler Station, watching the news reports with growing amazement. The station manager had moved her out of detention and into the best guest quarters they had. Everyone was being very polite to her now, but nobody would tell her when she could leave. "This is crazy," she said to Captain Morris, who had come to check on her. "I just walked past some animals. How did this become such a big deal?" "Ma'am," Morris said carefully, "those weren't just animals. They were the 50 deadliest creatures in known space, and they had been under mind control for years. What you did was unprecedented." Sarah looked back at the news screen, where a reporter was talking to Dr. Vexhai about her findings. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, "Humans, the galaxy's natural alpha species?" "I don't feel like an alpha anything," Sarah said. "I just deliver cargo." Meanwhile, in the main corridor, Zarthek was facing the collapse of everything he had built. His creatures were finally standing again, but something had changed. They still obeyed his commands, but their obedience was different now. Slower, less complete, worse. Word was spreading that the great Beastmaster had been humbled by an ordinary human. His enemies were already making plans. The first challenge came from a pirate lord named Krexmar, who had been hiding from Zarthak for 2 years. Krexmar arrived on Kepler Station with his own ship and crew, demanding to face the Beastmaster in combat. "Your power is broken," Krexmar shouted in the main corridor. "Everyone knows the human female made your beast bow to her. You are finished." Zarthak tried to use his mental powers on Krexmar, but even that was different now. The pirate lord resisted longer than he should have been able to. When Zarthak finally took control of his mind, it felt temporary. More challenges followed. A Dominion fleet captain who owed Zarthak money declared the debt cancelled, claiming the Beastmaster no longer had the power to collect it. A trading consortium that had been paying tribute for years announced they would stop. Each act of defiance made Zarthak weaker. His reputation had been everything, and now it was crumbling. Dr. Vexhai's research was spreading too. Scientists across the galaxy were confirming her findings about human evolution and pack behavior. The data was clear. Humans had evolved as the ultimate social predators, capable of forming packs with almost any creature they encountered. On Earth, researchers were digging through archaeological sites with new interest. They found evidence of humans working with animals going back much further than anyone had known. Cave paintings showed humans and wolves hunting together. Ancient burial sites contained humans buried alongside their animal companions. The pattern was always the same. Humans had found ways to partner with the dominant predators of whatever world they lived on. The Galactic Council's emergency session lasted 3 days. Representatives from 200 worlds argued about what this discovery meant for galactic civilization. The Thorians, who had controlled much of the galaxy's banking system for centuries, were worried. If humans had natural authority over so many species, what did that mean for existing power structures? The Krix, who had built an empire on military strength, were afraid. Their warriors were among the creatures that had sat down for Sarah-chan. How could they maintain their reputation as fierce fighters if they instinctively submitted to humans? The Vorthik, who prided themselves on their intelligence, were confused. Their advanced brains meant nothing if human presence could override their will to resist. On the 3rd day of the council session, they made a decision that would change everything. They invited Sarah-chan to address the council. Sarah didn't want to go. She had cargo to deliver and bills to pay. But the station manager explained that refusing was not really an option. The entire galaxy was waiting to hear from her. The council chambers were huge, with representatives from hundreds of worlds arranged in curved tiers that rose up like a mountain. Sarah had never seen so many different kinds of aliens in one place. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange she couldn't figure out which end was the head. When she walked into the chamber, a strange thing happened. Not every representative sat down like Zarthik's creatures had, but many of them shifted in their seats and looked away from her. The predator species were the most affected. Even some of the herbivore species seemed nervous in her presence. "Humans of Earth," the council speaker said, "we have asked you here to help us understand recent events. Your species appears to have abilities we did not know about." Sarah looked around at all the watching faces and felt very small. "I don't have any special abilities," she said. "I'm just a cargo pilot. Yet you accomplished something no military force has ever done. You caused the Beastmaster's collection to submit to you without violence, without technology, without even trying. I didn't know they were submitting. I thought they were just sitting down." A Thorian representative stood up. "Human Chun, do you understand what your species' presence means for galactic civilization? If humans have natural authority over most predator species, the balance of power could shift dramatically." Sarah thought about this. "I don't want to rule anybody. I just want to deliver cargo and make a living. Can't things stay the way they are?" "I'm afraid not," the speaker said gently. "Knowledge changes things, whether we want it to or not. The galaxy knows about human abilities now. That cannot be undone." Over the following weeks, everything did change. Trade agreements were renegotiated with humans given more prominent roles. Military alliances shifted as species that had always been dominant found themselves deferring to human authority without meaning to. Zada himself disappeared one day, taking his diminished collection and leaving Kepler Station quietly. Some said he went to the far edge of the galaxy, looking for worlds where humans had never been. Others believed he was trying to find a way to increase his mental powers enough to overcome human influence. Sarah eventually got to leave Kepler Station and return to her cargo runs. But things were different now. Space stations that had never paid attention to human traders began offering her special deals. Alien customs officials who had always been difficult suddenly became helpful and polite. She didn't understand all of it, but she noticed the changes. Animals that should have been aggressive became calm around her. Predatory species that should have seen her as prey instead treated her with respect. 3 months after the incident, Sarah was making a delivery to a mining colony when she met another human pilot in a spaceport bar. "You're Sarah Chun, aren't you?" the pilot said. "The one from the news." "Yeah," Sarah said tiredly. "That's me. Must be weird, being famous." Sarah sipped her drink and looked out the window at the busy spaceport. Ships from dozens of worlds were landing and taking off, carrying cargo and passengers across the galaxy. "You know what's really weird?" she said. "I grew up on a ranch with hundreds of animals. Cattle, horses, dogs, even some wild animals that came around the farm. They all listened to me, but I never thought it was because I was special. I just thought that was normal." "Maybe it is normal," the other pilot said. "For humans." Sarah nodded. "Maybe it is." Outside, alien crews were loading and unloading ships with the same efficiency they always had. The galaxy kept running the way it always had, with one small difference. Now everyone knew that the quiet species from the Little Blue world had been born to lead, and most of them, like Sarah, didn't even know they were doing it. The galaxy was still getting used to having a new alpha species. But for the humans, it was just another day at work.